Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Well, you bet your ass I'm
ready. It doesn't matter if you're ready!
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications. And once you're done, leave a comment down below and I just might end up responding. In the Wild West world of professional wrestling, anything goes. And at the end of the day, even in a business as built upon respect as this one, anything really can happen. Sure, Mexico has created a near sacred aura surrounding their masks, and the culture behind those masked wrestlers is immense. But if you stumble over to the WWE, anything goes, my friend. I'm D-Wicked from Watch WWE, and here's 10 masked wrestlers who were unmasked live. Number 10, Juventud Guerrero. I may have started this video calling out WWE and their occasional lack of respect, but in actuality, there aren't really many Mexican wrestlers who went over to the big dub and lost their mask, at least for the first time. WCW, on the other hand, well, may have loved their luchadors, but they might have only pushed them so hard just to watch them crash and burn afterwards. Juventud Guerrero might be the prime example here, as he was brought in as one of the hottest young talents for WCW's new and blooming cruiserweight division. Not too long into his time with the company, however, Eric Bischoff found himself a little bit too bored of this luchador and booked him to lose a mask versus hair match against Chris Jericho, landing him on the opening spot on our list.
This is taking far too long here. Hey, we're talking about tradition and heritage here.
Number 9, Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio will likely go down as the greatest luchador in all of professional wrestling history. His innovative style changed the game back in the 90s, with the massive hearted underdog developing much of the modernized style of lucha libre. Most iconic of all when talking about Rey has to be the mask, which will likely go down as the greatest in its respective category as well, being one of the simplest canvases to paint any colorization or design over. Oh, and also one of the all-time highest selling merchandise items ever. So naturally, when you've got such a legendary performer and a literal representation of himself just sitting right there on his face, yeah, it's basically a target on the head. Number 8, Rey Mysterio Jr. Notice the difference here, alright? Rey Mysterio, Rey Mysterio Jr. They're totally not the same guy. See, Rey Mysterio Jr. wrestled all the way back for World Championship Wrestling, old WCW, and found himself in quite a similar position to the aforementioned Juventud. The filthy animal that was a WCW faction, I am not a racist, found himself joining that group after Eric Bischoff originally demasked the legendary luchador, citing him as both boring and unmarketable. Boring and unmarketable! Remember that all-time highest selling merchandise item, that iconic Mysterio mask that comes in literally endless amounts of designs? Yeah, sorry, Rey. We can't make a dime off you. How about taking off that rich heritage on your face and dancing for us a little bit more?
He hooked on the shoulder. He's hooked on the head.
Number 7, the Shockmaster. I really needed something to lift the old spirits after reminding myself that the ultimate GOAT legend Mr. Mysterio was stuck in the cesspool that was WCW, so naturally, I turned to that company's greatest debut ever. The Shockmaster was supposed to become the new top threat to the Four Horsemen and rise up the ranks as the biggest babyface in all of professional wrestling. The Shockmaster was also a man wearing a glittered up Stormtrooper helmet. These two wrongs do not make a right. I like to think that regardless of the debut, Shocky really wasn't going to get that far, but nonetheless, he has one of the most unintentionally hilarious unmaskings, unhelmetings I guess, of all time.
I told you. Oh, God.
Number 6, Vader. This one is weird. Big Van Vader wrestled and subsequently lost a match against Kane back in the old WWF days in a mask versus mask match. Now, this match wasn't just in old WWF days, it was in early 1998. Kane debuted in semi-late 1997. Who was gonna pick Vader to win this match? No one, and unfortunately the poorly utilized Mastodon ended up losing that match and subsequently his mask, which, why? Look at the mask that this guy wears. Is it really that hard to try imagine what the rest of the face looks like? Like, you can't wear a Vader mask when you go rob the bank, you gotta bust out the Mysterio. That's not from personal experience, I swear.
Kane, look! Can anybody beat Kane as Kane is unmasking Vader? Man!
Number 5, the Hurricane. Not too unlike the prior entry on this list, the Hurricane being unmasked would have really never caused that much of a storm. While Vader's mask was even less covering, at least Vader was supposed to be taken as a serious threat in the WWF. The Hurricane's mask might have covered up a little bit more of the dude's face, but the Hamburglar-esque superhero's mask wasn't really doing that much more. Plus, we already knew that it was Greg Helms underneath. So, why? This was just odd, but nonetheless, Jamie Noble decided to get the ultimate form of humiliation by revealing the Hamburglar's true identity, his extremely, truly eyeshadowed to oblivion face.
Why is she slapping him?
There he is.
Taking the mask off.
She's demasking the Hurricane. And check. Oh, man.
Number 4, CM Punk. That's right, remember when CM Punk wore a mask? While he didn't exactly debut as such a luchador, Punk found himself on the losing end of a mask versus hair match against one Rey Mysterio. Wow, look at that, Rey Mysterio in a mask versus something match and not losing. Who'da thunk? While CM Punk might have found himself without those luscious locks, he did find himself a nice little mask to cover up that baldness. So naturally, the big bald bad show came in knocking and decided to toy with the straight edge savior. This might have been like my favorite moment of all time as a kid. Just look in those eyes. That is pure terror inside of those eyes.
No. He's gonna unmask him. Punk.
Whoa! Punk has been demasked by the Giants.
Punk shame.
Number 3, Mr. America. Mr. America made his debut for the WWE just a few weeks after one Hulk Hogan was kicked off the roster during his feud with Chairman Vincent Kennedy McMahon. And let me make this clear, he was not Hulk Hogan. No sir, no Hogans to be seen. Pretend it's 2015 all over again and he's scriped from the history books. What is a script? Mr. America debuted to cause Mr. McMahon as much grievance as humanly possible, making his life a living hell and ensuring he would be there around every single corner to get under every single skin cell as often as he could. Mr. McMahon thought he kind of looked, he was bearing a little bit of resemblance to Hogan, but Mr. America insisted that he was no such man on multiple occasions. He even proved it with a lie detector test, which, as the government of the United States knows, is totally legitimate. Well, I'm sold. Mr. Not Hogan America would go on to... What's he doing? Number 2, the Spider Lady. Here's a little history lesson and a fun fact, folks. The event in question here all took place way back on November 25th, 1985, making it the oldest topic I think I've ever covered on this channel. You might recognize the name The Fabulous Moolah, and it very likely is not for great reasons. Among her many a wrongdoing was her relentless hold of the Women's Championship back during her very elongated era, still to this day having by far the longest reign of any championship belt within the WWF. You've probably heard a lot about how Bruno Sammartino held that WWE title forever, right? Moolah had it for 5 times that length. So keep that in mind when in 1985 a young Wendy Richter was finally pushed to be the woman to dethrone this unrivaled queen. But when Moolah threatens to tear apart the women's division to Vince McMahon Sr., which given her position in women's wrestling at the time she was fully capable of, he relented and let an unknown masked wrestler known as the Spider Lady wrestle Wendy Richter for her championship, and in what's known as the original Screwjob, that's right, not Montreal, won the championship without pinning or submitting Richter. And just moments later, we all found out who that devious spider really was.
And Wendy the champ, look at that. It is Moolah.
But number 1, it's gotta be Kane. Kane, of course, Mr. Glenn Jacobs. No one else could sit atop the unmasked mountain. But I have some questions. When Kane was unmasked, why was his good friend Rob Van Dam in the ring and not the Tormentor's Evolution who had forced him into such a scenario? And far more importantly, What were they going for here? Glenn Jacobs, as a man on his own, as the mayor, looks imposing as hell, but that Krusty the Clown curly hair, the black paint scrubbed across his face, where were the scars that Jim Ross had talked about for literally 6 straight years? What? And I'm still not over the black. Like, is that supposed to be ash from the fire? Ash doesn't just stay put for 20 plus years. If it rained once, he was gonna get cleaned. What is happening?
What the hell is that? His hair came out. Oh my God!
And those are 10 times that masked wrestlers were unmasked live. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments down below. After liking the video, subscribe to the channel, and notifications, ring that bell.